I mean, I think if you follow us on social media, you will already know and already will have seen I got married. I'm in two minds. On one hand, I want to say it is a little bit surprising, but on the other hand, I'm like, it's not because it's Red Bull. um, so I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see what the findings are and to see what the penalties turn out to be because
Yeah.
could potentially be a big, big cost, not just money wise,
Failure.
but
I was like this team. I got so annoyed.
yeah.
I was literally swearing at the TV. I was like, this was like the one little bit of defending that I've ever seen Alonso do against Max. Hi guys, welcome back to On the Chicane. You're here with me, Paris, and finally my co-host Marium is back. Oh
I'm
my
back.
gosh, I missed you so much.
I missed you too. I missed this
How
whole situation.
you did? This is what we like to hear. How was your time off? What have you been up to? Tell everybody. Everybody has been waiting for you to come back.
I mean, I think if you follow us on social media, you will already know and already will have seen I got married. Yeah, I got married to the love of my life. And we have literally just been having the best time away. We were on our honeymoon for 2 weeks, so I missed Zandvoort and Monza because I was away over the span of like 3 weekends. And I've come back and it's just been straight into it. I'm actually recording from Greece right now. So I was watching the Singapore Grand Prix from Crete. So it's just been lots of traveling, lots of eating good food, and just enjoying life with my husband, basically.
That
But
is
I'm
so
back
cute.
now. Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been the most amazing month. But yeah, I'm back now. We're ready to get back into it. Our channels have been lacking a little bit, so we are sorry, but we're ready to just get going again.
Yeah, literally, it's hard kind of doing it, I think, by yourself when either of us are away, when we kind of lean on each other, right? So it's always a little bit hard. But one important question, is he an F1 fan?
He's not an F1 fan. um,
Heartbreaking.
I've been trying to like get him into it, and I've been saying like we need to go to a race together, and he's like, why would I go and sit there and just do this for 50 laps? And I'm like, because it's not just that. There's so much more to it. But I think sometimes he likes to hear me waffle on, I suppose, sometimes. So I keep him updated. I don't know if he actually is interested or if he just pretends to be interested because he loves me, but I'll go with it.
Just don't take him to Monza because I made that mistake. I took my lovely boyfriend for the first time, and Monza was not the track that you should be taking him to. So don't take him to Monza. Take him to somewhere with a lovely hospitality and where he can actually see the race and enjoy the atmosphere.
Okay.
But
Silverstone might be on the cards next year. We'll see.
definitely, definitely. So yeah, this weekend was the Singapore Grand Prix. It was the first time being back at the track for 3 years. So they kind of went away because of COVID, and I'm not sure why they didn't come back like straight away, but they were off the calendar for 3 years. It is a street race, it is a night race. So they hold it quite late in the evening, local time. So I guess so that the European fans can kind of watch it over their morning breakfast or their lunch kind of thing. And usually I would say it's like not the most kind of exciting race when it comes to overtaking, but it's a speed circuit, right? Like it's a street race, and it can be quite exciting. A lot of things have happened there over the years. So generally I'm always quite looking forward to Singapore, and it looks really cool under the night lights. But I feel like this race this year was just pretty underwhelming.
It
um
was pants.
it was so pants, but in the kind of lead up to it, a lot of stuff happened off track. So I think one of the main talking points this weekend was the cost cap. So if you don't know, the FIA are releasing their findings from all of the financial data. They audited all of the teams, and they are releasing their kind of findings on October the 5th, which I believe is this Wednesday. And basically, it's just going to say who stuck to the budget cap and who didn't stick to the budget cap, who was fiddling around with those numbers, trying to get more parts in on the track last year, and who managed to get everything done, fair and square, should we say. And the rumors are that two teams have exceeded this budget of around about $145 million. And the two teams supposedly rumored to have exceeded the budget are Red Bull and Aston Martin. So I think that's quite an interesting thing, like the two teams. Aston, I feel like we kind of knew, right? Like if any team was going to be on that list, it was going to be Aston.
Yeah. They're a team that has money to waste, essentially. You know, they're building their wind tunnel, they're building an entire new factory. They've got a lot of money behind them. So I think to hear that Aston are in that group or whatever is not surprising.
Exactly.
Red Bull, on the other hand, I'm in two minds. On one hand, I want to say it is a little bit surprising, but on the other hand, I'm like, it's not, because it's Red Bull. So, you know, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see what the findings are and to see what the penalties turn out to be, because could potentially be a big cost, not just money wise, but to Red Bull, depending on what the penalties are. However, I do feel like there's always rumors and always talks of like extreme penalties and things happening, but then it's not really that extreme. It's quite anticlimactic. So I think
there was a perfect example in yesterday's race. So we can even show how sometimes the FIA appear to follow the rules, but in reality it's inconsequential. And I think that is something that could happen. I feel like the fact that we even think it could happen shows how far the FIA have fallen, especially in light of everything that happened last year. I think the issue isn't that Red Bull or Aston have gone over, it's the fact that, which I mean in itself is an issue, but what I'm trying to say is I feel like the fact that we think the FIA might not penalize them correctly is kind of messed up. And that there's been a lot of talk, really. So all of the team principals were asked in the press conferences and in the media pen, like, what do they think about this? And a lot of people were criticizing Toto Wolff for kind of name dropping Christian Horner and basically insinuating that Red Bull had been investigated for a long time. But as their main rivals, and yes, it's quite a serious thing to say, but as their main rivals, if people are telling you that Red Bull have cheated, especially under what's happened, just like, can you really blame him for name checking him?
To be honest, considering how much Christian has name dropped Toto and Mercedes and Lewis, I don't know why people have anything to say really about the fact that Toto
freaking hypocritical. So I don't know. I'm just like, I'm like, I'll wait to see the findings. I'm not going to say that Red Bull are cheating little toe rags, even though they might be. Like, I will wait to call them cheating little toe rags until afterwards. But if they are, it's not going to surprise me at all. And I think there's always lots of speculation. It's F1. I think the consequences of the speculation and the consequences of the cheating is the massive issue. So if they have cheated last year and gone over the cost cap, it means that they've put better parts on their car, if they spent more time on certain aspects of their car, and that will affect their car this year. If they use those same parts this year in the car next year, that will affect their car next year as well. So it does have a long ranging impacts, right? It's not just for this year. And where other teams have managed to stay underneath that cost cap, and they've had to fire people because salaries, not driver salaries but team salaries, are included in the cost cap and things like that. Like, it's really unfair for any teams to go over that amount.
I agree. I think if you've got teams that have proved that it can work, then there's no reason that you should be going over, right? I think we can speculate and we can say like all of these things, but I think there's no point in actually having anything to say until we get the results and the findings from the FIA report.
They need to make sure people stick to the cost cap, and the penalties need to ensure that people are going to stick to the cost cap. Because if it's just like, oh, you're going to get fined a little bit of money, they'll just be like, cool, we'll break the cost cap every year and pay the money. They've got enough money to do it. There's other teams that don't have enough money, like Haas and Williams, for example.
Exactly.
And that was they shouldn't be penalized for it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So you're saying like they could either raise the cost cap or people have to face the consequences. I think by raising the cost cap, it's like really unfair for the teams that don't have as much funding, because that's the reason the cost cap kind of came into place in the first place, right? Because they wanted more equal competition, and the point was to be able to develop more equal cars and to have that restriction. So by raising the cost cap again, like essentially you're saying to the richer teams, like it's the way that it is in society, you can get away with anything if you've got money. You can't as much if you don't. So yeah, raising the cost cap probably wouldn't be the solution, considering why it came into effect in the first place. So I don't know, it's a hard one, but let's wait and see what happens in 2 days' time when they release the results.
Definitely. And I hope that the FIA comes down with the strictest strictest hand of the law, as they say. They did, last thing, I just wrap up on it, that they did release a statement. So the claims at the moment are unsubstantiated, and they basically said the FIA is currently finalizing the assessment of the 2021 financial data submitted by all Formula One teams. Alleged breaches of the financial regulations, if any, will be dealt with according to the formal process set out in the regulations. And the FIA notes significant and unsubstantiated speculation and conjecture in relation to this matter, and reiterates that the assessment is ongoing and due process will be followed without consideration to any external discussion. So for their part, what they're saying is they will make sure that they process it, but they're still processing it.
Statements from the FIA literally mean nothing anymore, so whatever. Literally. But yeah.
So yeah, that's something interesting that happened off the track, and we'll see what comes of that. In other news, if you have been watching us for a little while, if you have been following us on socials, you'll notice that we put up a competition. So when I went to Monza, I grabbed you a lovely little bit of merch, and we will be, if you stick around to the end of the video, which we hope you always do, we will be announcing that winner. So make sure you tune in and see if you've won, basically. And if you haven't won, it's because you didn't subscribe. So subscribe now. On to the race. So you said you're in Greece. How's it been watching the race in Greek?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to commend the Greek people, because the race was on one of the main channels, because I was panicking, like, how am I going to watch this race? I need to find a stream, I need to do something. And then I Googled it, and it's literally like on, like, I think it's their equivalent to like BBC One or BBC Two or something. So it was on one of the main channels. So that was great, because I got to watch it very easily. But it was very monotonous. The commentary literally gave nothing away. Like, there was none of the whole crofty Brundle vibes that you get with Sky Sports, which is like so much enthusiasm, so much like excitement over the smallest things. The Greek commentary was just one tone the whole way through. It was like talking in Greek and then just name dropping every now and then. I'd be like, oh, okay, so they're talking about Perez or Charles Leclerc, as they kept saying. But yeah, no, I mean, the main thing is I got to watch the race. So, I mean, I tried to watch one of the races. I can't remember which one. I think it was Zandvoort from the Maldives, and I had no luck. So, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have been able to watch it, but
I'm
I
sure
didn't
the beach
understand a
was
word of
sweet
what was going
anyway.
on. Huh?
I said, I'm sure the beach was sweet, so it didn't really matter anyway.
Oh, we were in a private water cabin, so it made up for the lack of F1.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I feel like this weekend, even if you could have heard it, and the monotonous Greek commentators probably was pretty much similar to what actually was happening on track, to be honest. It was pretty underwhelming, I would say. It
Yeah.
just did not pack the punch that I would expect an F1 weekend to have. Um, there was rain, there was like chaos, the Max Verstappen on qualifying, he didn't qualify at the front because they underfueled him, and he'd done too many laps, so they pulled him in and they told him to stop early, and you heard all of his crying expletives and shouting at the team. If other drivers had done that, they would be crucifying them, but whatever. It was going to be a like super mixed up grid, and things were going to be really interesting. The Mercs were doing really well. Lewis qualified or third, I believe. And George Russell ended up starting from the pit lane because he didn't qualify so well, so they decided to just change his PU. So I thought it was like, cool, this is going to be a super interesting race. And then it just got to Sunday and it rained, and then they just decided, oh yeah, we're going to postpone the start of the race for like an hour. So we're just sitting there like waiting for it all to kick off.
Yeah. I think I saw some things circulating online, and there was an article that I read that basically said like F1 does not know how to handle wet starts.
Yeah.
And it's true, they don't. We like every time there's a wet start, it's like, okay, we'll delay the race, or like we'll start under the safety car, or all sorts of things. But it's I understand that it's difficult, because imagine like starting under really extreme conditions. You would be like, um, that's not safe. Like we had that example. Do you remember Belgium like a few years
Belgium,
ago?
yeah.
It was 2 years ago, I think. Or was it last year? Was it last year? It was last year.
It was last year because we were
Yeah.
recording.
And it was the most ridiculous race that was just a farce of a race.
Mm.
But that was
I think
really,
the difference was in Belgium, like the rain was still pouring down, and they decided to like go on to the wet weather tires and start behind the safety car and not have a race. Like they'd already pre-decided that they weren't going to have a race. Whereas I feel like with this race, they kind of just like they just decided to delay it. They just decided to start on the intermediate tires when they could have started on the super wet weather tires, and maybe the drivers would have had a bit more grip. I feel like there's been loads of races in history of F1 that have started like on wet weather tires and things, and for some reason they've just excluded wet racing from F1. Like they just don't allow it properly anymore.
yeah. I feel like I'm not really well equipped to comment on wet weather racing, just
Yeah.
because I'm still mortified from what happened to Bianchi in
Mm.
2014. So I genuinely feel like I sit on the fence, and I don't really know what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like the safety of the drivers is paramount, and that should always be the most important factor when
Mm.
considering how to start these races. But there definitely needs to be some sort of procedures that make it easier, or I don't know, maybe they need new tires. Maybe Pirelli needs to develop some sort of new technology or something with
Yeah.
tires that are better equipped for wet racing. I don't know, but
No, but
yeah, it
it's
was a bit
true.
of
It's
a
true. Like there should be either you cancel all races that ever happen in wet weather, or you do something that allows you to actually race in the wet. And I feel like
yeah.
combining the wet weather yesterday with the street track meant that there just wasn't really any racing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was very they couldn't open their DRS for so many laps. So it was just a lot of sitting behind each other for
Yeah.
laps after laps after laps. And the only times where, like, real for the first half of the race, the only times where anything really happened was like when cars had engine failure. And when cars had engine failure and, you know, a safety car or like virtual safety car came out and somebody decided, okay, well, now I'll pit. Like, that's the only, and it wasn't even strategic, which I think really annoyed me even more, because at least, like, usually if there's like wet race or there's a street track and you can't overtake, you do some sort of pit strategy, and it's like, cool, I'm going to jump into the pits and change my tires, and then this is going to help. There was none of that yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It was a lot of, I think the most action did happen when people were pitting, or there were a lot of people who, I don't know why, but for some reason, everyone except Perez, Norris, Ricardo, I think, maybe just those three raced really well. Everyone else, maybe Sainz, everyone else seemed to have an issue.
Yeah.
Loads of people ended up in the wall. Loads of people went wide. They just could not handle. Again, it comes down to not being able to handle the wet weather and the tires not being well equipped for, like, what Pirelli, I feel like, need to do is develop a tire that can handle wet to dry conditions, because that's what we don't have. You always have drivers who they'll start on the wets and then, like, it gets to a point where they're like, we need to switch to slicks, but it's not quite dry enough to switch to slicks. So there are still parts of the track where they're still, like, you know, aquaplaning or whatever. So there needs to be maybe some sort of new tire that's developed that allows drivers to be able to race properly in those conditions without everything that happened in Singapore yesterday, which is going into the wall or running wide or like spinning around. And like even Max ended up going off into one corner, did a really amazing save and like spun his car around and then rejoined the race. Hamilton was in the wall. You had everyone pretty much making some sort of rookie mistake. Actually, I think the Astons did quite well as well. I think really.
One of the things that I would say is that because everybody, like you said, bar like McLaren, I think Vettel even made a mistake. Stroll, I didn't notice make any mistakes, but like bar a few people, or the people who DNF'd before they even had a chance to make a mistake, I feel like it's more to do with like the way the car handles in that kind of condition, because obviously they've got these new spec cars and they're like much bigger and they're much like more, they're supposed to be a bit more flexible, but they're actually a lot bigger and like generally a bit heavier. And then you've got the tires that, like you said, Pirelli need to work on, and then maybe not their optimum window is a lot smaller. So when you've got this big bulky car with a tire that only works in a very specific window, you don't then get the flexibility that you need for that type of track. And I think that's kind of proven by the fact that like kind of a lot of people went off on that same turn, the one where Max spun around, like quite a few people did that. There was another turn where a lot of people went wide and ended up off the track. So I feel like it's easy to say that it was like rookie mistakes, and a lot of people will be like, how did they make so much mistakes? But I feel like everybody made similar mistakes, and that's quite telling in itself when you've got that level of driving ability on that track and everybody's making mistakes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the key point that you just made there is the fact that they were all the same kind of mistakes.
Yeah,
you didn't have just one driver just making some random error. It was all the same kind of situation and all in the same areas as well. So yeah, I think like you said, that is very telling.
So I think it just wasn't great. And you know, I also thought, so Max was just at the beginning, he started off 11th, and within the first lap he dropped back like 4 spaces because he made an error like in the first lap when he was starting. And then I just got really annoyed because I felt like all of the drivers in front of him, it was like Stroll, Gasly, Stroll, Sonoda, Gasly, Alonso, and Norris. And I was like, yeah, all of them are just gonna let him by. I just, you could just see, Norris, not Norris, Sonoda left the door wide open for him. And I love Yuki, but obviously he's an AlphaTauri driver. Gasly went wide. I'm like, of course Gasly went wide, like on that exact moment that Max needed to get by. Kudos to like Alonso a little bit, as much as I don't really like him. Like he actually did try and defend for a few laps, and then he ended up having an engine failure. I was like, this fucking Alpine. I got so annoyed. I was literally swearing at the TV. I was like, this was like the one little bit of defending that I've ever seen Alonso do against Max, and even that little bit was like done. Vettel tried. So like the two stalwarts, Alonso and Vettel, actually tried. Tsunoda, Gasly, they all just let him pass. Like it was just like, oh, this is bullshit. I can't believe this.
I did see your tweet basically saying that Max is walking to fifth, which was a fair point. But I mean, he didn't actually end up doing that well.
No.
Yesterday. I mean, the thing was, I think something like that. I think the thing was that we're now in that part of the season where the championship can be decided. Yeah. And in Singapore yesterday, if Verstappen had come, I think, first, and Leclerc, I think it was like 8th or below, the championship would have been Max's. So we're now in that stage that Max is about to win. So I think for people who aren't too keen on Max winning the championship, it was just nice to have that bit of extension to his, winning whatever.
Yeah.
And someone in my work chat today, we were obviously talking about it, and someone said something about how they're really happy that Max can't equal Seb's record for the youngest driver or something whilst Seb is still on the grid, which I thought was a very valid point, because obviously I love Seb.
And he's not been having the best last year, has he?
No. But that being said, let's talk about Aston and McLaren, because for some reason where everyone only two teams that managed to finish with both drivers in the points, when both of them haven't been doing the best. But I do think that the wet weather seems to be a good thing for the Astons, because I think where we have had wet races this year, Aston Martin have had good races. So maybe
it's because they're so used to driving a shit car that the wet weather doesn't really make it much different.
I mean, that could be it. It's just that everyone else's car just goes so bad that they're on par with Aston, and Aston are like cruising. Yeah, could be. Who knows? But yeah, it was nice to see both of the drivers in the points yesterday, and even Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Considering like how he's been doing, and obviously the fact that we don't know if he's even staying next year. I think it was quite nice to see that he was racing up there in the points and didn't make any mistakes that meant he would end up DNFing or anything. So yeah.
Current driver rumors, just because you mentioned it, the current driver rumors are Gasly to Alpine, which I didn't know. Oh my god. Okay, so super side note, I did not know that Ocon and Gasly hated each other.
Apparently this is a thing.
I didn't know this was a thing. I thought they were like cool. I didn't know that there was any beef there, but apparently there's like big beef and they hate each other. So if they end up on the same team, that's going to be quite spiky. And I don't think Alpine want like, a situation where you've got two people butting heads.
Well, see, I think if it were any other team, probably, and they probably would consult their existing driver as to who they want their teammate to be, as they used to do back in the day. I don't know if they even do that much anymore, but it's Alpine. And considering their shit show of a summer with that whole announcement for Piastri and everything, I don't feel like they actually care.
No.
I think they're just like, let's just get a good driver, and everyone loves Gasly.
And then you're gonna have two French guys at the French team.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the whole ball of like bonjour,
baguettes and pastries and croissants,
basically.
That is so bad.
It is very, very prejudiced. I'm very sorry I said that. Not really. My name's Paris. Okay, I'm allowed.
That's a very valid point.
But so the current rumor is Gasly to Alpine. Who are they saying is going to replace him at AlphaTauri? Fuck, I don't think it's De Vries.
They're saying
it is De Vries.
Where's De Vries going? De Vries is definitely rumored to be joining the grid, and I feel like it's
AlphaTauri. Yeah, I think it's AlphaTauri. And then Williams, they're saying like Logan Sargent, I think, to Williams. So, which is interesting.
Sargent to Williams makes sense.
I really would have thought that Nick De Vries, being a Mercedes kind of like managed driver, he would go to Williams. But I guess if you have the opportunity to go to Williams, or if you have the opportunity to go to AlphaTauri, despite it being like enemy lines, you would go to the better team.
Yeah, I am surprised at De Vries to AlphaTauri, but not surprised at Sargent to Williams. So I am intrigued to see how this driver market is going to play out, because I feel like it's a make or break kind of situation for Gasly. I feel like he signed for AlphaTauri for next year. However, how many years is he going to bloody stay at that team? Because it's doing nothing for him.
I think he should go to Alpine. Agree. I'm happy for him to go to Alpine. Go for it, mate. Get on.
I agree, but I don't know. Alpine aren't the most predictable team, are they? And also, this rivalry that is apparently existing between him and Ocon could be dangerous for their driving.
It could be.
They're both drivers that I love, and both drivers that I feel have a lot of potential. But if they get too in their heads and too competitive with each other, rather than the rest of the grid, could be an issue. But
it could be, or it could be like a Naruto situation. And I'm going to go anime for my anime nerds, where you've got like Naruto versus Sasuke, and they hated each other, but they made each other better.
I have no idea who those people are, but I'm happy for the anime reference. I hope some of you understand what she just said.
Yeah.
I will ask my husband to break that down for me, because I know he likes anime stuff. But yeah, if Paris is saying that is the thing, then that is the thing.
So I think, basically I think they could be rivals that make each other better, because they're both good drivers. And I think that as much as they might have a lot of tension, they'll push each other to do better. It could be like a Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton situation, where, you know, Nico got a championship out the end of it, as much as he lost his sanity and nearly his wife. But, you know, it's all right. You got his championship.
I mean, it's a good thing that neither Ocon or Gasly are married, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see what happens, I guess.
McLaren and Aston did really well. They did.
Yeah. I'm just happy for the Aston boys. I know it's not going to continue, but one can always hope, you know.
I just want Seb to have like a nice end to the year. There's like 6 races left, and I feel like he just deserves like a. You've really made me like Seb this year. Well, not this year, since last year. Before that, I didn't like him.
Good. He's a nice guy. Yeah, no, I hope he has a good few races. Yeah, Singapore for me, another reason why I'm really happy that he did really well is because Singapore is, I think, it's the last race that he had his race win back in 2019, I think it was. So the last Singapore Grand Prix, that was his last race win. So I feel like it just holds a lot of emotion there.
Yeah,
So I'm happy. I'm really happy that he had a good race and managed to score some vital points for the team.
he did.
Yeah.
But some bad stuff happened in the race. We had 6 DNFs. So we had Valtteri Bottas, both Alpines, both Williams, and I'm trying to remember who the last one was, but I can't remember.
Zhou, Guan Yu Zhou.
Yes.
Zhou Guan Yu.
Yes. So it was just like a really unfortunate. So it wasn't actually Bottas, sorry, it was Zhou. My bad. And I'm still trying to remember who the other 6th person was.
Tsunoda.
There you go. And I just like, I don't know, the fact that a lot of the cars kind of engines blew up and had like massive difficulties and stuff. I don't know. I just thought that was a bit sus as well. I thought that was terrible for so many cars to fail out.
Well, who knows what was going on with the Alpines, because that was just what the hell. Like first you had Alonso and then you had Ocon. Or was it the other way around? Anyway, both of them, like with their engine failures, which made no sense. Tsunoda, I think, went into the wall. So did Zhou Guan Yu.
Latifi, I think. Paul.
Latifi just Latifi'd.
I'm so glad he's going. I'm so glad.
Honestly, I remember seeing it and literally saying to the TV, "No wonder you're not racing next year." Like, honestly. Yeah. I'm sorry, but he's just not good.
No, he's just not good. And then I think because of that, it caused a lot of disruption in the race, but not good disruption. Like you had the virtual safety cars, and then you had 2 full safety cars, but just didn't have any of the sparkle that it usually has.
Yeah, it didn't. There was like no chaos on the restarts as you'd expect. I think there was one point where Lando and Max nearly collided on one of the safety car restarts, but nothing that kind of made you think, oh, you know.
Yeah,
it's kind of just like, oh, okay, fine, the race has started again. But also, I don't know if that's because Greek TV doesn't give anything away. I don't know if I missed something.
It was just as boring in England, I promise you. And then you just had like really silly mistakes, like really unfortunate mistakes. As I said, I don't know if the mistake was just because the car was handling bad or just genuine bad decisions, like Lewis trying to overtake Vettel at the very last second and losing 2 positions. Like, what? Why? Mate.
Yeah, there was a lot of that and just a lot of stupidity and a lot of, I mean, we can call them rookie mistakes, but they weren't rookie mistakes because I do think that a lot of them were spurred on by bad weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, yeah, it was
And then
not
there
a
was
good.
a bit where Russell just like went and tested medium tires for a while and ended up like a whole lap behind everybody else. And I think even like nearly 2 laps at one point he was so far behind. But yeah,
I think as Russell said in his Instagram post that went out either today or yesterday, in a season where he's done so well, it was like inevitable that there was going to be one race where they just didn't get it right because, you know, George has been Mr. Consistency. There's a reason that his fan base calls him that. He's scored in the top 5 of each race for God knows how long. So there was bound to be one race where they just didn't quite get it right, and it turned out to be Singapore, where the weather was really bad. So I don't know if I can keep blaming the rain and the bad weather and the chaos that it kind of spurred on, but the weather was definitely a huge factor as to why it was such a shockingly bad race, I think.
Yeah, I feel like the only, like you said, the only people that really got it right was the Astons, McLarens, and Perez. Maybe Sainz.
Yeah.
Although I don't know. don't know if Sainz got it right per se.
I
Leclerc, I
mean,
feel like,
surprising stuff. I was going to say surprising stuff from the Ferraris because they always tend to do something and screw up one of their races, if not both.
yeah,
So it's quite nice to see that both of them. I think it was a first double podium finish for the Ferraris since Miami, which was in May, I think.
yeah. To be
So
fair, like I'm saying that Ferrari didn't get it right more so because Charles started on pole and didn't win.
mm,
And I think that's the only
yeah,
thing really that they did wrong. And once, like we said, like it's not a very easy track to overtake. They didn't have DRS for half the time. They were stuck behind different safety cars. The race was capped at 2 hours, so it's not even like they had the full race distance to even like try to do any maneuvers or any strategies or anything. So like there was lots of reasons why people stayed in the same positions, but yeah, just wasn't great. And then to cap it all off, they decided to investigate Perez for not staying behind the safety car within 10 car lengths and not do the investigation during the race. Like how is he celebrating on the podium and he doesn't actually know if he's won yet or not?
no, that was really confusing. And then for his penalty to be just a 5 second penalty, which didn't do anything because obviously Leclerc was 7.2 seconds or something behind him, behind the
Oh,
finish line.
actually, they did make a mistake there, Ferrari, because you knew that Perez was likely to get a penalty because the failure for not staying behind the safety car. Like, I think, what was the race that Seb lost his win?
That was Hungary
Hungary 2020,
last year.
2019. One of them, 2021 maybe. But yeah, so like, didn't he lose it for the same thing where it was like he got a 5 second penny? So it's known that that's the penalty for that infraction, and Charles should have just stayed within 5 seconds just because of that. So yeah, I
We're
feel like they
thinking
made
of
two
different.
mistakes.
Sorry, just going back to the Seb thing. I think we're thinking of different races because I think the race that I'm thinking of that Seb lost his win, which was Hungary last year, is because of fuel. Not
Oh yeah,
there
it
not
was
being
because
enough
of fuel.
fuel. I don't
Was
know
it?
if
I
I'm
feel
thinking
like
of
it
the
was
same
Seb
one.
who lost his thing for not staying behind the car.
I don't know, but you're right. They knew it was coming, so they should have pushed him to try and close that gap.
Mm-hmm. So I think that was just silly, to be honest.
Yeah. So going on to your winner and loser of the day, who are you giving your loser to?
I'm giving my loser of the day to the stewards for not investigating Perez until the end. I'm also giving my loser of the day to Max Verstappen for not winning the World Drivers' Championship in Singapore like he could have. So Red Bull for fucking up his fueling and not fueling him, and him for not realizing that they hadn't fueled him, and all the rest of it. Because also, as the driver, you should know how much fuel you have. And I'm giving it to Lewis, and because he messed up and he could have got a podium yesterday and he didn't. So I've got three losers because they all bloody deserved it.
Lewis is a very valid one considering he started in a podium position and did not end near a podium position. So
Yeah.
yes, I agree with that one. My loser of the day is going to go to, I'm going to say George Russell, just for losing that streak of being Mr. Consistency and just having a bad weekend in general. Sorry, George, love you, but it's a no from me. My winner. No, wait, you tell me your winner because I haven't thought of mine yet.
My winner is going to be Perez for absolutely lucking the fuck out and keeping his win despite should have having a harsher penalty. I feel like he should have had a harsher penalty. So I think he lucked out.
Yeah. Mine's gonna go to Ricardo for having a points finish.
Top
And
five.
just top five. He finished fifth, so I'm very happy for Ricardo considering all the bad stuff that's been going on around him and his seat and his potential lack of seat next year.
I think that's some solid winners. But I'm hoping that next week we will have some proper winners and losers. I feel like we're owed a good race, and Suzuki usually delivers. So yeah, we're owed a good race.
Yeah. Bring on Japan, where I'm literally working from 1 a.m. until 11 a.m.
That is devil hours.
From Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's gonna be fun.
I feel
so
so
that's
sorry
what you
for
get
you.
for working in Formula One. It's fine.
Next time, try and get them to send you to Japan, and then at least you'll be on local hours.
That's a very valid point. You know, like get me a pass and get me in, rather than working remotely. Yep, I like your thinking, Paris.
On it. But we have one last thing to do before we round out this video. We need to announce the winner of our competition. So as we said at the beginning of this video, we did a competition. We picked you up some merch in Monza, and I have it here actually. It's a very cute bucket hat, an F1 bucket hat. So we will be sending that to our lucky subscriber who probably listens to us and follows us, and we appreciate it so much, because we need more subscribers. I feel like, we need to kind of get out there, and we've been around for a while, and I feel like now we're deserving of more. Now we want more. So we're going to give to you, and hopefully that will give to us, basically. But yeah, we need to hit the random name picker.
Go on, Paris, you do it.
So the winner is, drum roll please. The winner is Connor Preston.
Congratulations, Connor.
Congratulations, Connor.
So we will catch you next week with our Japanese Grand Prix recap, after obviously the Japanese Grand Prix. But for now, please make sure you are following us on all of our social media. That's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, which isn't really used much, and obviously YouTube. Subscribe, share, comment, like, follow, all of the above. And yeah, like I said, we will catch you next week. Thank you so much for watching. As ever, guys, your support means everything to us. And yeah, take care.
Thanks. Bye.